Hi, it's Will from StormingCastle.com, and this is part 6 of the Sculpting Fantasy Miniatures tutorial. And we're continuing on with the 3-inch miniature here we have of the Viking with his two-handed sword. And in part 5, we just bulked out his body, we got a rough musculature and got some shape to his form. And in this part, we're going to actually get some detail work and make him look like a real person. Instead of being so blocky and chunky, we're going to actually now sculpt his figure. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to strip away the sword, take all of that off, and work on his body. And then once I've got his body pretty much done, then I'll work on the sword last, because it's going to be in the way, and it'll just be easier. And sometimes it's the best thing to do. Some people will actually make miniatures in stages, like they'll make the legs first, and then they'll attach the torso, and then they'll actually make the arms and attach the arms. And that's one way to do it, but that's not how I like to do it. I like to visualize the whole model. So for this stage now, we're going to be doing a lot of tool work. We're going to need our, to magnify like this. If you get something like that, it's really great. It'll give a lot of detail. And we're going to, if you have a magnifying glass, that helps too. So whatever you can use to get a really good look at that miniature while you're working on it would be great. And I have this in a vise, but this is a portable vise. See, I can move this around, so which is important. We're going to be working all the way around the sculpture. So, gather up your tools. And a lot of people tend to not like to do stage 5, but you have to do stage 5, and you have to set in the bulk of the body roughly in a rough shape, so then you can start to sculpt it, and then it starts to really look good in stage 6. And stage 6 here is when we're going to put most of his musculature in and start to work on some of the details. And then in part 7, we'll actually add some of the finer details of the clothing and whatnot. So I'm going to start sculpting, and I'll give you little snippets of progress as I go. And I'm going to continue pretty much the same procedure. I think I'm going to start with his feet down here and slowly work my way up, but it doesn't matter too much. You can work it any way you want. Okay, I just wanted to show you here the progress I'm making. I'm starting to whittle away at the block shape of the miniature and starting to form the musculature. And you can see it's starting to take some nice shape. I got the all of this. See, it's starting to actually look like a figure. So it takes some time. You got to keep after it. And this is only an intermediate step. I still got a lot more work to do. But you can see that it's starting to actually get proportioned correctly and get shapes. And I'm starting to do the musculature. A couple of tips about doing this is, a knife is great to whittle away. An X-Acto knife is great to whittle away portions. Small pointing tools, a tiny screwdriver, and of course you're not just going to be taking away, you're also going to be making adding pieces. So your little tiny pieces like this, you knead them real well and you add them in to build up the musculature and the shape. So I'm going to keep going with this, and I'll show you again. Okay, I just wanted to show you where I'm at right now in the process of this miniature. I've further refined it and added more detail. I've got the musculature almost where I want it. I'm getting close to the final stages here. What I have to do is I have to do the face. I have to clean things up, get it a little bit more defined, work on the feet, and add the sword. And then I'm going to do all of that. I'm going to get this to the finished point here, and then that'll be the end of tutorial 6. And then in tutorial 7, we're going to do a very important thing. We're going to actually add clothes, small ornaments. We're going to put bracelets on him. We're going to do his boots. We're going to do the detail on the sword. And the reason why we're going to do that in 7 is because that's the process that you're going to use when you're doing very small miniatures, like a miniature that's about this big. So something like this, this is about the official 25 or 28 millimeter miniature. And when you're doing something like that, it's really difficult you got to use your 2-part epoxy, and you only have a certain amount of working time. So what you do is you build it up in the same kind of a way. You just add small pieces to it. You can't really put a big glob on there and bulk it out and then sculpt it. You have to kind of build it up little piece by little piece. So that's what we're going to do at the end of, that's what we're going to do in tutorial 7, is we're going to add those little pieces to this miniature so you can get an understanding of how to do it for the next tutorial, which will be probably the final or next to final tutorial. We'll have to see. So I'll be right back when this is when the body's pretty much done, and I'll show you that. I'll talk a little bit more, and then that'll be the end of this tutorial. Okay, I finished sculpting the body here, and you can take a look. It looks pretty good. It came out pretty good. I got some nice detail in there. I've got his face done. He's got like a little goatee. You know, everything's pretty much ready here as far as the body sculpting is go. I'm pretty satisfied with it. Next, I'm going to do the sword. I'll put that in, but that'll only be rough. That'll be the rough sword. It won't be all the way down to the detail. This is the end, and then I'll show you that, and that'll be pretty much the end of part 6 of this tutorial. And then we'll move on to part 7, which is very important in that we're going to add the fine details, and I'll show you some tips when we do that. And it's very important with this 3-inch miniature that you get the habit of you learn how to add fine details, because when it comes down to the 1-inch miniature, that's all it is. It's all fine detail. So you'll have to learn how to do that. I wanted to say a couple of things here. You know, while you're working something like this, you know, make sure you improvise. Like, I don't know if you can see this, but what I've got here is a little piece of wire that I use. I created this, you know, and it's even a couple of different sizes. The other end is even smaller, so I could, you know, sculpt with it. You know, I made a bigger hook. Anything at all I used, you know. And actually, as funny as it sounds, when you're working with Super Sculptor, you can even use just a paintbrush to smooth things out and get a nice texture on the surface of the skin and whatnot. Actually, you go slow and it takes some time, but actually just a dry paintbrush works pretty well. And there's different bristle sizes. So, you know, make sure you improvise, make yourself up some nice little tools, keep going after it, and practice. So I'm going to put the sword on, and then I'll show you how it looks. Okay, this is the end of part 6 of this tutorial on sculpting fantasy miniatures. This miniature is done as far as all the form and shape goes. And now the next part, which I'll show you in the next installment, will be the detail work. I'll put on his helmet, I'll put some clothes on him, his boots, some bracelets on his wrists, and I'll put some jewels in the sword. And that's very fine detail work, and it's you have to be real careful with it. But that's exactly how you're going to do the next tutorial when you do the 1-inch miniature. So it's very important work to do and to learn how to do, and I will be showing you how to do that. So for now, this tutorial is done. Plenty more stuff on my website, stormthecastle.com. I got miniatures, I got painting, I got tutorials on how to paint miniatures, I got all kinds of stuff. So thanks for watching.